Hi, I'm Eleni, and I'm here with another video with a human-centric leading tool called Use Emotions as Data. If you've never come to videos before, I'll explain it. It's very simple. Name it, decode it, respond to it. So it's actually a tool that helps us handle emotions at home, in the workplace, with our own experience without getting emotional. So the term emotional has come to mean in our societies as over-emotional. And we don't need to be over-emotional or over-logical. We can be balanced, and we could be emotional and logical and use all of our intelligences to solve problems and communicate with people. So using this helps us use the emotions as information to help us relate or understand each other better in relationships and solve problems. Because most of the problems that exist within a team setting, as an example, in an organization, are emotionally based. And the idea of keep emotions at bay has not served us well. So now we have to start to figure out, well, how do we use the information that emotion gives us so that we can learn about what's happening and deal with it and then move forward? And that's what this tool helps us do. It's a logical tool, it's a very simple tool, and it helps us decode even the most complex emotions, because what the emotions are telling us are, let's do something differently. It might be a new thought, it might be a new assumption, behavior, interaction, response. It's telling us, the emotion is telling us some information that if we use it, we are ahead of the curve. If we don't use it, what happens is the emotions intensify. It's like, pumping up a balloon with helium, gets bigger, 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 and at one point it's going to explode. And that's why you might have had the experience or seen others where they explode at a tiny little comment or a tiny little thing, like the toilet paper is finished and nobody changed it. Divorces happen because of that, because it's like a last straw. So we don't want to get to the last straw in our emotional experience. We want to be, balanced with it all the time. So we're going to do a case with a woman who is a well-known leader who has been invited to a leadership forum to speak. And she noticed, she came to me, so I'll give it an example as someone coming to me. So it's not me dealing with my emotions. It's me helping someone else respond to their emotions, okay? So that you might see another video on emotions called fear, anxiety, and frustration. That's a video of how to deal with your own emotions. And this one is how to help someone who's come to you with their concerns, and you help them use this approach, whether they know about it or not. So this person came to me as an example, and she's going to speak in front of a leadership forum. So it's a leader going in front of leaders, and she kind of started to get fearful and anxious. She started thinking, worried about failure. Would she be able to respond to people's questions? Was she able to please people? Because she wanted everyone to like her. And so she was going on with this. This is part of what the fear was. Then she said, well, I'm also very nervous, and I'm wondering if a lot of people will be critical toward me and being judgmental. And she noticed that, she wasn't in the present moment. Now, how did we notice that? Basically, as I was speaking to her, I was thinking about these. What's the name of the emotion? How do we decode it? And then how to respond to it. So the way she was responding to her emotions was to kind of cycle in them, like get more and more amplified in fear and anxiety. So I may not have spoken to her of name it, decode it, respond to it, but it comes in a conversation. So I would say, oh, so what do you notice? It's like, I'm really scared. Okay, so I heard fear, and I'm just documenting it for this video. I wouldn't necessarily document it with her. Saying, okay, it's fear. And then I'll say, do you feel, like you can handle it? No, I'm really anxious. Oh, I heard another one. Then I listed the other one. And I'm starting to use the tool as I'm listening to someone. So it takes some practice, but at one point you're going to become so used to it that you'll do it immediately and you won't even notice. Then when we decode it, we start to understand, what does fear tell us? What does anxiety tell us? Well, fear tells us something is, we feel unsafe somewhere. The fear is like fight or flight. It's usually a very primal fear of something bad is going to happen. I'm not safe. I'm not okay. And so as she was speaking, I started writing these down for this video, not necessarily in front of her, so I could understand what is the fear. So the fear of not being liked, the fear of not being able to handle things, the fear of what she called a failure, I guess, being unhappy about her performance in that presentation. And so the safety was like, she's not safe. She didn't feel like it would be okay for her. Then we also heard anxiety. So that she was worried about, other people being very critical because, there was some political activity in this forum, and she was worried that because she won that position to speak at that forum, that other people would be angry that they didn't get it, or they didn't think she should, or that people from another country should have. So there are a lot of politics involved. And we also noticed that she was always thinking of later. So it was like a week before the presentation, but she's thinking about the presentation instead of staying in the present moment. So that's the part of the decoding. So it was telling us what is going on in the situation, and slowing things down and noticing, name it, decode it, respond to it, gives us time to use our brains to respond instead of this emotional reaction that comes very quickly. So we have to find ways to slow things down. This is one way. Another way is deep breathing. Another way is, yoga and meditation, which takes a little bit longer, but you could do that, even meditate for a moment. That slows things down, especially when you inhale, let's say at 4, and exhale at 8, right? That exhaling slowly slows down the parasympathetic nervous system so you can get calmer even in a couple of minutes. So we'll go to respond to it. So we're, in discussing this case, we'll say, okay, what could she do? Well, one of the things we talked about is question her fears. Really, are you really unsafe? You won that position. It was fair. It was clear what the criteria were to win that position to speak at this forum. So, why would you be scared? I mean, what does that give you? What unsafety do you have? And she was realizing the unsafety was a thought. It was really just a thought she was thinking instead of the reality. She was very capable. She was very knowledgeable. In fact, she could handle questions, and she realized when she stays calm instead of going into anxiety in the future, when she stayed in the present moment, she could respond to any question. No question ever rattled her. She actually loved questions or even objections. So we're just noticing with a judgment-free awareness. So it's like someone super successful going into fear and anxiety. It's okay. In our culture, we say, oh, if you're very successful, you have no fears, you have no anxiety, you analyze everything perfectly. No, that's not the case. Everyone has their own journey, and people at every organizational level, every financial level, any developmental level have their own path as to what makes them nervous, what triggers them, what makes them anxious, and it's okay. There's no worry about it. She also noticed that she would like to actually be trusted more than liked. So when we talked about, she's like, well, what if they don't like me? And I said, well, what if they don't? What if they don't like you? Does that make you less good, capable, important, your message less important? No, it's just, their preference or, the political situation. And so she started saying, when we questioned what if nobody likes her, she started to think, okay, if nobody likes her, then what would she want? Well, she wants someone to trust that she's done the analysis, that she's been prepared, that she does have information and experience to share, and that she cared more about. And when she started focusing on trust, she was like, oh, well, then maybe I'm going to add a little bit more detail on the research I've done. Maybe I'll talk a little bit more about the cases I've done. And then she started to realize how she could respond to the fear and anxiety in a way that made her feel more confident. You see? So in this case, you see how when she looked at these emotions and questioned them, she could see, oh, okay, that thought wasn't working. Oh, then I was in the future, not in the present. I was wanting something that's kind of not very achievable, like everyone to like me or to please everyone. That's not always very helpful, but being trusted by everyone is not either, but that's what she liked better, that felt better to her. So she was able to, instead of reel in these emotions, getting more anxious, more fearful, more, she responds to them and say, okay, this is what I can do in face of getting these emotions which are telling me I need to question what I'm assuming, I need to question what I'm going after, I need to question how I'm going to be present in that presentation to the leadership forum. You see, so this is a really good example of how I, a person who's not feeling these emotions, could help someone else who came to me, where I could hear, as I listen, what fears there may be. They may be 10 more. There may be one. It depends on the situation. In this situation, we chose 2. And then we start to decode them and respond to them. Then later, this didn't happen with this case, but it could with another case when someone comes back and 2 days later and said, well, I'm anxious about this again. Okay, then we do the process again because it's a new anxiety that would have come forth that needs to be heard and responded to, and then we do it again, and we do it again and again and forever, really, basically, because emotions are constantly in flow and they inform us of something in a situation, a specific situation. It could inform us something from the past is popping up. It could inform us that we're in the future. It could inform us that we're not prepared for something, all kinds of things. So we use each one to help us learn what we could do to feel more confident and prepared and capable and, resourceful in each situation.